The ocean is the world's largest, most silent witness. It covers 70% of our planet, yet it remains a frontier where human law ends and the ancient laws of nature begin. Most who vanish at sea are claimed by the depths, their stories ending in the dark. But occasionally, the sea chooses to give something back. It returns a vessel, sails trimmed, engines humming, cargo intact, but with one terrifying omission: the souls who inhabited it. These are the ghost ships. They are the physical echoes of a moment where something went horribly wrong, leaving behind a riddle that history has yet to solve. Today, Odyssey of History investigates the 7 most bone-chilling maritime disappearances in human history. We aren't just looking for ships, we are looking for the truth behind the vanished. On December 4, 1872, the crew of the Dei Gratia spotted a speck on the horizon between the Azores and Portugal. It was the Mary Celeste, a brigantine that had left New York 10 days prior. She was sailing erratically, her jib and foresail slightly torn, but otherwise seemingly sound. When the boarding parties stepped onto her deck, they entered a time capsule of domestic normalcy. The captain's table was set for a meal. The crew's belongings were neatly tucked into their trunks. There was a 6-month supply of food and water in the hold. Even the captain's harmonium stood silent in the cabin. But Captain Benjamin Briggs, his wife, his 2-year-old daughter, and the 7-man crew were gone. The only things missing were the ship's chronometer, the sextant, and the lone lifeboat. For 150 years, the Mary Celeste has been the ultimate forbidden mystery. Was it a giant squid, a sea quake, or something more human? Forensic historians point to the cargo: 1,701 barrels of industrial alcohol. 9 of those barrels were found empty. One theory suggests the alcohol leaked, creating a lethal invisible vapor that terrified the captain into an emergency evacuation. But if they left in a panic, why was the table set? Why was the logbook filled out calmly just hours before? The Mary Celeste didn't sink. She simply became a shell, drifting through the Atlantic, carrying a secret that she refused to share with the men who found her. If the Mary Celeste is a mystery of absence, the SS Ourang Medan is a mystery of presence, the presence of terror. In June 1947, several ships in the Strait of Malacca picked up a frantic Morse code distress signal. The message was fractured, chilling, and ended with a sentence that has haunted maritime history ever since. All officers, including captain, are dead, lying in chart room and bridge, possibly whole crew dead. Then a final trembling burst of code: I die. When rescuers finally located the Dutch freighter, they found a literal house of horrors. The crew members were scattered across the deck, frozen in the exact positions they had died. But they weren't slumped in sleep. Their eyes were wide open, staring at the sun, their arms outstretched as if fending off an invisible attacker. Their faces were contorted into expressions of pure, agonizing terror. Even the ship's dog was found dead mid-snarl. But the most disturbing part? There were no wounds, no blood, no signs of struggle. As the boarding party prepared to tow the ship, smoke began to billow from the lower decks. They fled just before the Ourang Medan exploded and sank, taking every scrap of evidence to the bottom. To this day, the CIA has files on the incident. Was it a leak of chemical weapons, Or did the crew see something in the fog of the strait that the human heart simply wasn't meant to withstand? In January 1921, a massive five-masted schooner was found run aground on the shifting sands of Diamond Shoals, North Carolina. The Carroll A Deering was a ghost. Her sails were up, her lights were on, and, most eerily, food was being prepared in the galley for the next day's meal. But the crew, the lifeboats, and the navigational equipment had vanished. The Deering represents the conspiracy angle of maritime history. Before she disappeared, she was spotted by a lightship. A man with a foreign accent, not the captain, had yelled through a megaphone that the ship had lost its anchors. Shortly after, the Red Ghost, another mysterious vessel, was seen shadowing the Deering. The FBI, under a young J. Edgar Hoover, investigated. Rumors of rum runners, Bolshevik pirates, and even the Bermuda Triangle swirled. But the most likely answer is the most chilling: a mutiny. The captain was old and ill. The first mate was aggressive and resentful. Did the crew kill their officers, abandon the ship in the Red Ghost, and vanish into the lawless ports of the Caribbean? The Deering remains the most famous unsolved mystery of the American coast, a monument to the fact that sometimes the most dangerous thing on a ship isn't the storm, but the people on board. In 1955, the MV Joyita was called the Unsinkable ship of the South Pacific. She was built with cork-lined hulls designed to stay afloat even if flooded. So when she was found drifting north of Fiji, listing heavily to one side but still very much afloat, the rescuers expected to find the 25 passengers and crew waiting on deck. Instead, they found a ship that looked like a crime scene. The radio was tuned to the international distress frequency, but the wiring had been cut. The clocks had stopped at 10:25. Most disturbing were the medical bags found on deck. They were filled with blood-stained bandages, as if someone had been desperately treating multiple wounds. Not a single soul was ever found. If the ship was unsinkable, and it was found floating, why did everyone leave? Forensic analysis showed that a pipe had failed, filling the bilge with water. But the passengers would have been safer staying on the listing ship than taking to the shark-infested waters in small dinghies. The Joyita mystery suggests a panic so total that it overrode the basic instinct of survival. Or perhaps they weren't fleeing the water. Perhaps they were fleeing something that had already made its way onto the deck. Most ghost ships are found once and then claimed by the sea. The SS Baychimo is different. She is the ship that refused to die. In 1931, this steel-hulled cargo steamer became trapped in the pack ice off the coast of Alaska. The crew abandoned her, expecting the crushing weight of the ice to snap her hull like a twig. But the Baychimo didn't sink. For the next 38 years, she became a phantom of the Arctic. She was spotted dozens of times by Inuit hunters and other sailors, drifting aimlessly through the ice floes. Multiple boarding parties reached her, but every time a salvage crew tried to secure her, a sudden blizzard or shifting ice would force them away. She was last seen in 1969, perfectly preserved by the cold, sailing herself through a frozen graveyard. She is the ultimate evergreen ghost, a vessel that outlived her crew, her company, and her era, proving that sometimes a ship develops a will of its own. If the Baychimo is the ship that refused to die, the Octavius is the ship that refused to let its crew go. In October 1775, the crew of the whaler Herald spotted a three-masted schooner drifting aimlessly off the coast of Greenland. Her hull was battered, her rigging was a web of ice, and her decks were deathly silent. When the boarding party descended into the captain's cabin, they found a scene that would freeze the blood of even the most hardened sailor. The captain was sitting at his desk, perfectly preserved by the dry, sub-zero air. He was still holding his pen. His last log entry was half finished, the ink long dry, dated November 11th, 1762. The Octavius had been drifting with a crew of corpses for 13 years. Forensic analysis of the logbook, what little could be salvaged before the brittle pages crumbled, revealed a hubristic gamble. In 1761, the Octavius had attempted to find the legendary Northwest Passage, a shortcut through the Arctic ice that had claimed dozens of ships. They had become trapped. The ship eventually broke free from the ice, but only after the last of the crew had succumbed to the cold. The Octavius didn't just drift, she became the first vessel in history to successfully navigate the Northwest Passage, a feat achieved entirely by a crew of the dead. She is the ultimate lethal time capsule, a reminder that the ocean is a vault that occasionally unlocks itself just to show us what it has taken. To those who think ghost ships are a relic of the past, we look to 2007. The Kaz II, a modern catamaran, was found drifting off the Great Barrier Reef. The engine was running. A laptop was opened and turned on. The table was set for lunch. The life jackets were still in their lockers. Everything was perfect, except for the 3 experienced sailors who had vanished. There was no sign of a struggle, no blood, and no storm. The Australian coroner eventually ruled it a freak accident, suggesting one man fell overboard and the others drowned trying to save him while the boat drifted away. But for the families and for the maritime community, the Kaz II is a terrifying reminder. In the vast, lonely expanse of the ocean, it only takes 1 second for a modern miracle of engineering to become a floating tomb. Why are we fascinated by these empty vessels? Perhaps it's because they represent our greatest fear, that we can disappear without a trace, leaving our unfinished meals and our unplayed music behind. The ocean doesn't care about our plans, our technology, or our history. It is a place of profound silence. And as long as men and women sail upon its surface, there will always be ships that sail back into port with no one at the helm. Which of these maritime mysteries do you find the most chilling? Is it the frozen terror of the Ourang Medan, or the 38-year voyage of the Baychimo? Tell us your theories in the comments. And if you want to explore the 10 ancient books you are forbidden to read, click the video appearing on your screen. This is Odyssey of History. Thank you for sailing with us into the dark. For in the vast, indifferent silence of the sea, it is our questions that provide the only light. The waves may claim the wood and the iron, but they can never drown out the human need to know what lies beyond the horizon. Keep searching for the echoes in the mist, and stay curious.